Hey there, and welcome to my channel, The Paperback Investor. In today's video, I want to talk about how Tesla's full self-driving could be rolled out, or I think it will be rolled out in the next few years. I find there's a lot of people that kind of fall into two camps. One camp of people that just assume, yeah, Tesla will get full self-driving, they do the big March of the Nines, flip the switch, and everyone will have full self-driving, yeah. And then there's another group of people that kind of say, well, that's really impractical. The public's not going to accept that. They're not going to get there safely in all places, all areas. So they kind of say full self-driving is impossible. I want to sort of take the middle ground. How I see it happening is somewhere in the middle between those two scenarios and add some detail on how this might roll out. Because if you understand how this might roll out, this could really impact your portfolio, really impact Tesla's valuation, how you see it now and going forward in the next few years. So I encourage you to watch this carefully and let me know what you think in the comments down below. If there's anything you disagree with or timeline wise, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, let's get into it. Before I go any further though, I want to make it absolutely clear, not a personal financial advisor, just a guy with a paper bag on his head who loves investing and thinking about the future. And I also love seeing other people get excited about the future and excited about their own investments and take more charge of their own personal finance and learn to invest. So if you're a person like that who's learning to invest, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. If you're already into investing and you just want to hear my perspective as someone who loves thinking about the future in as much detail as possible, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button if you get value out of this video, and I'm sure you'll likely get value out of my future videos as well. Okay, I'm going to jump into a little document here and walk through it with you guys on how I think full self-driving will happen. Okay, so how full self-driving will happen, a step-by-step process that could impact your portfolio. And as I kind of mentioned, most people, I find most people tend to fall into two camps. There's a kind of the just flip the switch on camp who think that all it's going to take is just, boom, we'll just get full self-driving next few years, flip the switch on, everybody's got full self-driving robo-taxis everywhere. It's just that simple. And then there's the other people who say, they see some of the problems with that, and they say this switch you won't just flip, therefore full self-driving is impossible camp. And I think they go way too far. They don't see the nuance, and they just basically write off full self-driving and say, oh, it's going to take till 2030, 2040 before full self-driving even gets here. Just to mention, though, even if it takes Tesla until 2030 to reach full self-driving, but they do in 2030, still a great buy because the present value of that future value is phenomenal. Anyways, that's for another video. But moving on, I want to detail the middle ground, which is how I think full self-driving will actually roll out, and I'm calling this the practically makes sense camp, which I'm trying to fall into that camp so I can make the most of my investments and make the most of my Tesla investments. This is what I think will happen, okay? I think test number one, full self-driving beta, which is what we're in right now, that's going to go USA-wide. I think this will happen before the end of 2021. Elon's tweeted, I know they just doubled the full self-driving beta pool. Everyone's waiting for this button to appear, and whether that's when or download full self-driving beta button. Everyone's looking for that to appear. But I think this will happen before the end of 2021. It will go sort of USA-wide. And I think drivers will need to sign a waiver, a very strict waiver, and still be completely responsible for the car as it drives. I also think this will be a huge catalyst for the stock, as they likely will also roll out their subscription plan at the same time. So you can be able to, I did another video on this where I kind of did the math and showed that, if there's X number of people left in the USA who have full self-driving capable cars but didn't pay for it up front, and they buy a subscription for $200 a month, then you're going to see a huge increase in operating profit over the next, the next quarterly results. And I think Wall Street would get a hold of that and really understand firsthand how powerful the Tesla model is. That they're not just a car company, they're a car company that's really a software company on wheels, which is where they're going to make most of their money, in my opinion, is all software sales. Okay, then after the full self-driving beta happens, it's going to be the March of the Nines will continue. March of the Nines meaning they're getting 99.99999% better and better and better, and this is going to continue. But in my mind, to be fully safe everywhere, on every little grid road, every weird anomaly you might run into with your driving. This is a long march. This will take a long march to get everywhere. So We'll get there, but it will take time. And, in the meantime, before you get everywhere marched out, the safest and most valuable, and by valuable I mean there's lots of miles per trip, so I don't mean like a difficult little trip where you drive half a kilometer around some difficult route, but I mean more like a highway trip where you drive 100 miles and all it is you're driving on following one lane on a road. Those, they're sort of most valuable and the safest or easiest to really nail the full self-driving and be assured that it's safe. Those will be deemed safe for driverless cars first. I think that's what the public and regulators will allow. So that's going to happen before every anomaly everywhere can be perfectly nailed out and marched out. This is going to happen first. And okay, so then we say it's going to move on to sort of step 3. How does that happen? It's going to be highways and cities with simple climates. They'll be approved by regulators and the public first. So certain jurisdictions will approve certain geofenced areas safe for full self-driving. So they're going to somehow define a limit. I know some people in the Tesla community don't like the word geofenced. I don't like it either. Makes me think of Waymo with just their really crappy little system they have near Phoenix. But I think this is what's going to happen. They're going to have to somehow put a limit, and it's better than waiting for everything to be perfect. They're going to see that, hey, within the Phoenix, city boundaries, we have all this data to prove that for the last number 6 months, there's been literally people drive intervention free, pick a spot, and they drive from one spot to the next intervention free. Even these sort of jurisdictions that they're working on, Tesla could target to iron out every little kink. They could prioritize that in their own improvement pool, that every little kink or intersection or anything that could be sort of misunderstood is completely ironed out. And then these areas first defined will be areas that deliver the most value and are easiest to achieve a long march of nines. Think Phoenix like cities again, and highways between superchargers. So I also think highways are because you can, rather than taking a bus, you could just go to a supercharging station and catch a Tesla there, or even with several people in your vehicle, catch a Tesla and travel to a nearby city or town or whatever on the highway, which is relatively easy to do. Teslas arguably have already been able to do that for a while, and it's very valuable because it's a long stretch of distance you can now take suddenly in your robotaxi. And I think Tesla will be approved, I'm going to guess, for some areas like this before the end of 2022. That's my prediction. Before the end of 2022, kind of like Waymo is doing right now in Phoenix, Tesla will be doing that, but I think it's going to completely blow the socks off what Waymo does right now near Phoenix, in the Phoenix area. It's going to be, a lot more dramatic. It could be like all of Phoenix, and it could be like hundreds of other little smaller communities and towns and interconnecting roads and highways around them. There might be like more off-road situations. They'll say, no, that's not defined yet. We're not comfortable. The public and regulators are going to say, we're not comfortable enough with that. The data is not good enough. And even full self-driving beta testers aren't going to be driving on those kind of roads as much at that time, right? Okay, and then after that's what happens, and number 4, I'm calling the USA expansion of approved areas. So the approval will move across the USA, starting in the simple climates and then moving to more challenging climates. All the while, full self-driving beta will be running USA-wide, and Tesla will be improving the entire system as a whole. So people will still be driving their cars like normal, just anywhere outside of the approved areas. And then they will target specific jurisdictions to perfect them, Tesla that is, and then get authority and public approval before rolling them out. And that's kind of what I mentioned. Like, even if they want to target Phoenix first, they can just make Phoenix perfect, that full self-driving worked perfectly there. That's what I think they'll do. They'll sort of target each network and expand out one by one. Certain cases like snowy winter conditions will be targeted and perfected before being approved as well. So again, that's just like a certain special conditions. Right now, it seems like full self-driving beta is really built for sort of California conditions. And of course, they'll make the car, just like someone was learning to drive in snowy, icy weather, they'll make it learn to recognize snow and ice in different conditions and snowy conditions and see through that and drive carefully and appropriately through those kind of conditions. They'll continue until full self-driving cars can prove themselves everywhere and completely win over public approval. And I think this will take a couple of years, maybe by 2025, for most practical roads to be driven USA-wide. So I think by 2025-ish, like most cities, highways, main roads, communities, like in the USA, you can just get in your robotaxi and go from point A to point B. If you want, I think the expansion will continue past that to even more refined kind of off-road situations where they find the off-road, or, I mean, maybe the Teslas will just, maybe that's in there, that'll just all get approved because the Teslas I know they're being built to be able to drive in a scenario they've never even been before. But I'm thinking 2025 for most roads in this kind of a rollout scenario. And then after that, I think it's going to be a worldwide expansion. And that's going to start before the USA expansion is practically finished. Other countries will begin accepting approval, and Teslas will roll out country by country and adapt to specific details of each country, including their driving habits and their infrastructure. And the rollout will continue worldwide, so they'll just keep rolling out. And I want to make this one last point, though, which is I think is kind of interesting as well, is that I think the speed of the rollout worldwide will likely be most limited by the number of Teslas that can be produced, or the number of, maybe I should even say, robo-taxis that can be produced. It's not going to be, people would want it to expand faster once it's sort of proven and accepted by the public, that they'd want it to roll out faster than they'll be able to. But unless Tesla partners with other automakers and licenses their full self-driving hardware and software to them, which is actually something I might make another video on. I think I've commented on some of my videos, or was it on Twitter? I can't remember. But I would. It's hard to say, but I think I would like that because they could kind of cement their dominance in the full self-driving space if they were to do that. If they were to partner or create a sort of a licensed ability to partner with other automakers, so they could have their hardware and software and also build robo-taxis. But either way, but especially if Tesla is the only one making the full robo-taxis and the only one doing it, and it's just, you can only get one if you can get a Tesla, then the main bottleneck for full self-driving robotaxis will be the number of cars that can be produced. And the number of cars in the world and the demand for robotaxis will be much larger than can be supplied at that time for quite some time. And I think because of this scenario, the share price of Tesla could skyrocket once this becomes obvious. So you might have some movement here in the next while up. We might get to 1,000 plus, I think, by the end of this year for Tesla shares price. But I think it could, I'm talking, in the parabolic sort of skyrocketing movement we've had in the last, year and a half for Tesla. I think that could happen again. And I think once this becomes obvious, and I think it'll be obvious once full self-driving is being rolled out USA-wide, and people are accepting it and it's working, and it's just a matter of learning new climates and areas and little details of perfecting each city and space and highway, and then advancing that. Once that's happening, I think it will be obvious, and that'll be somewhere between 2022 and 2025. Obvious that this works and this is going worldwide and that the economics of it work. And when that all comes together, and they'll be able to charge a ton for the robo-taxi ability, or whether they charge for full self-driving up front as a huge fee, or they charge on a per mile or per kilometer basis as people use their Tesla as a robo-taxi. Tesla takes a major cut of that, or a combination of both. I think it's going to be extremely lucrative for Tesla, and the share price could skyrocket again, just like we've seen. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts of how the sort of detailed thoughts in my own head of how I see Tesla's full self-driving actually being rolled out across the US and across the world. Love to hear what you guys thought about this. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree about anything. I love to hear your own thoughts, and honestly, I'm always open to refining my own thinking. I always read all your comments, even if I don't have time to always respond to every single one. But I appreciate each one of you for being part of my channel, watching watching this content. And if you got value out of this, again, I encourage you to subscribe. And feel free to share it with somebody else. Hit the thumbs up. Helps me out big time as well. Helps the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Cheers.